Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marie and this is Marie Edwards Crime. This is the story of 4 University Idaho students: Madison Mogan, Kylie Gongalves, Zana Coronado, and Ethan Chapin. They were tragically murdered in their shared off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho.
4 University of Idaho students were found dead in an off-campus house yesterday morning. Today, both the university and police identified the students who were killed. 3 of them are from Idaho.
So just a little backstory on the 4th student. Madison, also known as Maddie Mogan, was born May 25th, 2001 in Eugene, Oregon. She was born to parents Karen Laramie and Benjamin Mogan, and at a very early age, her family decided that they were just gonna move back to the town where her parents had grew up in, which is in North Idaho. She was a marketing major at the University of Idaho and joined the Pi Beta Phi. I am so sorry, guys. I do not speak Greek, so I'm sorry. Kylie Gongalves was born in Concord, California on June 8th, 2001, which made her 22. And she was born to Steve and Christy Gongalves. She was the middle child of 5. Around age 1, Kylie moved to North Idaho with her family. Kylie attended Charter Academy for middle school, where she and Maddie Mogan met. And then the two just became inseparable ever since. She attended Lake City High School before attending the University of Idaho with Maddie and joined the Alpha Phi sorority. She was studying to become an elementary school teacher. Zana Coronado was born in Idaho on July 5th, 2002 to Jeff Coronado and Kara Northington. She went on to attend the University of Idaho, where she joined the same sorority as Maddie. She majored in marketing and worked at the Mad Creek restaurant with Maddie. Ethan Chapin was born in Seattle, Washington in October 2002 to Jim and Stacy Chapin. He was a triplet. The triplets were him, a brother, and a sister. And all 3 siblings attended the University of Idaho, where he and his brother joined the fraternity of Sigma Chi. And he was the boyfriend of Zana Coronado. And this all happened in Moscow, Idaho, which is a very small town with a population of about 25,000 people. So I'm pretty sure everybody kind of knew each other. I mean, it's this small. Maddie, Kaylee, and Zana and 2 other roommates, Dylan and Bethany, shared a 3-floor, 6-bedroom apartment house on King Road. And at this house, it was kind of known as a party house. Everybody just kind of knew it for that, which was, I feel like, if you live near a university, it's very common to have like these homes where it's just like a party home. So it was a regular setting for large parties, and noise complaints were, you know, kind of like a thing.
Last night we didn't do anything.
Is there an Elena Shepherd that lives here?
Who's Elena Shepherd?
The person that was born for the noise last night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, one thing I will tell you is we didn't do anything last night.
No worries. Neighbors are calling in again saying the music's good. Okay. All you guys do is turn it down.
Sure.
Sounds good.
That being said, the tickets get expensive. We got to come back out here, and you know the music keeps coming up and needs to be called.
Understand that. Yeah, we'll definitely turn it down. I mean, probably off, maybe like very low volume, but we'll definitely turn it down.
Yeah, you can have a party. You can have some music. Just not loud enough for people to calling in saying, hey.
Sounds good. No worries.
And just to mention, Ethan did not live at the home with the girls. He was just visiting his girlfriend and was planning on spending the night that night. On November 12th, 2022, around 9 p.m. or so, Kylie had shared some photos on her Instagram with a caption that read, "One lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day." And some of the photos show Maddie, Zana, and Ethan photographed. So these set of pictures were taken the same day, and then she uploaded them that same day that she took them. And you know, this group of sweet friends they weren't doing anything wrong. They were just doing what other kids around their age do, which is like, you know, they just go out and have fun. That's all they were doing. In this specific photo, and this is like such a popular photo because it was like everywhere, you could see Maddie sitting on Kaylee's shoulders, which to me is a great representation of their type of friendship, because they had been like friends since like forever, like since childhood. Moving on to the events of this specific day, same day as the pictures, November 12th. Zana and Ethan had attended a party at Ethan's fraternity, which was like just literally walking distance from the house that Zana lived at. And Maddie and Kaylee had went to a bar downtown called the Corner Club, and they arrived around 10. I mean, it's again nothing that should be like concerning or anything. It's 10. It's very like typical, you know. to go to a bar at 10. After the bar, it's like a few hours later, but now it's like the following day, November 13th. Around 1:41 a.m. or so, Maddie and Kaylee order food from a truck called the Grub Truckers. And they are seen on their live Twitch video, their stream, just ordering food, chatting. They took a picture at one point, and then there's like, different people like around them, but it's like nothing that should cause like suspicion. It looks like people waiting for their food. Literally nothing looks out of the ordinary. Even there was like a gentleman behind them that kind of looks a little, but it was like, if you were there and you're in that specific situation, you don't really think anything of it. It's like, oh, just people waiting on their food. They waited around 10 minutes for their food. And then also the gentleman that manages the food truck also explained that nothing seemed off. The girls didn't seem to be in danger or in distress.
It's chilling video of two University of Idaho students hours before they were brutally murdered. Kaylee Gonzalez in the white hoodie and her friend Madison Mogan were at a popular food truck near the campus. One man appears to be watching them. The time, 1:30 a.m. Kaylee takes a short video to post on social media, and they walk off together. Look, the man gestures towards them and then heads in the same direction.
I mean, honestly, you could see them like smiling in the video. Like they just look very like happy, like they were just having fun. And if they were in danger or in distress, I think the manager would have noticed, because it's like one of those things you just notice. And this specific video is just kind of chilling to see, because this is the last time they're seen alive, like on actual video. Like there's other people that saw them, but captured on video. After grabbing their food, then Maddie and Kaylee end up taking a ride shared together back to their place. And this specific driver had already given them rides before, so it was a face that they were familiar with. And their home was about 1 mile away from this specific location, so from this food truck. And it was kind of like private rides before. It wasn't like Uber or anything like that. Also, Ethan and Zana had returned home from the party at around 1:45 or so. They all arrived around the same time. By 1:56 a.m., all 4 young adults were together at the residence. The other 2 roommates that lived with them, Dylan and Bethany, they were already home. They had arrived before anybody else had gotten there. Once they got home, Kylie had made 7 phone calls to her former boyfriend between the hours of 1:26 and 1:52 a.m. and he didn't answer any of the phone calls. Then Maddie also made 3 phone calls to Kylie's boyfriend from her phone, and it might have been one of those situations where she was like, hey, let me call from your phone because he's not answering my phone calls. And I'm like, I honestly remember doing it. Like, it's nothing. So by 2:52 a.m., 10 phone calls were already made to her former boyfriend, but none of them were answered. And again, it was probably just one of those situations where they were like, oh, let me just call him from your phone to see if he answers because he's not answering me. I don't think this was anything that was like suspicious. I think they just happened to get home that night and it's like, oh, I just got home, so I'm just gonna call him real quick. And they had previously broken up because she was relocating, but it was like one of those things where she felt like that was like her guy. Some time had passed by, they probably ended up going to sleep, and Xana had placed a DoorDash order that arrived around 4 a.m. or so. One of the other roommates had woken up around 4 a.m. as well due to what sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog. One of the roommates said, quote unquote, she heard someone she thought was Kylie saying something to the effect of, there's someone here. And there's just a slight chance that it might have been Xana's phone because she was on TikTok around that time. And this was around 4:12 or so. And that same roommate also mentioned that she had looked out of her bedroom and she didn't see anything. And she opened up her bedroom door at the second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Xana's room. I don't know, if I heard one of my roommates crying or screaming or whatever, my first initial thought would be to just go and check on them to see if they're fine. And then the roommate then proceeded to say that she had heard a male voice saying something to the effect of, it's okay, I'm going to help you. But then this is so easy for me to say because I'm like, well, I don't know if I would check on them or if I would be like, oh shoot, like let me go my business. Either way is just it's like terrifying. The roommate then said that she had opened up the door again and she had heard crying, and then she had seen a man in all black clothes with a mask walking past her, and she froze and she was just in pure shock, almost like probably didn't know how to like react in one of those situations. And it's unsure if the man saw her. I could picture her being like this to where she could see him, but he can't see her. And again, she was just frozen. It's almost as if her body's natural response was to go into fight or flight mode. And honestly, it's so hard to say what somebody would have done, what I would have done in that situation, because I don't know. I probably would have froze as well, especially if it's a person that I've never seen before, or I'm not like familiar with this person. And then this person also had like a mask. I don't know. I think the whole mask situation, not being able to like know who that person is, like it just looks not normal. This had to be such a terrifying moment for her. And then what I'm thinking now is that, wow, like her life literally flashed before her eyes. Like she didn't know that then, but now that what we know now, she was so close to somebody that could have took her life. Like close. This roommate also mentioned that she didn't recognize the male. Like, and it's also kind of like hard to like say if you recognize him or not, because he had a mask over his whole face. But she did mention that the male walked towards the black sliding door. She described the man as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. I feel like that's a pretty good description of somebody. Then after that, like, I honestly don't know. I don't know if she was scared, tired, drunk, whatever the situation might have been. She locked herself in her room after seeing the male, and she probably just fell asleep after that. And I totally understand being in a state of shock when I first seen the male. I totally understand that, but I don't know if I'll be able to completely go to sleep right after seeing that. Like, I don't know if I'm safe in that situation. I think my first reaction would have been to call 911 immediately after seeing him leaving the house, because now I'm thinking something could happen to me. I'm like, there's a whole intruder in your home and you are crying and you're obviously shocked about the whole situation. Sis, call 911 immediately. Some hours had went by, about 8 hours. So it's now 11:58 a.m. A call was finally made to 911 from the home by one of the roommates. And then I had also heard that it was actually not the roommate, it was actually somebody else that had called. I don't know about that. The person that called requested aid for an unconscious person. When police arrived, the door to the home was unlocked. That means the man that you just saw could have came back in. We didn't lock the doors, we didn't check on nobody at the house, we didn't do none of that. Her first reaction was just to go back to her room, go to sleep, then call 911. Nearly 8 hours since all this happened. 8 hours, guys. That's a whole work shift. Like, that is such a long time. I can't grasp that whole 8-hour thing. I think I'm calling my mom, my brother, my sister, everybody. I'm calling everybody. During that time, the two roommates also called friends over to their house because they thought one of the girls, either Zana, Kaylee, or Maddie, one of them on the second floor had passed out. So they were talking about one of the girls. Names weren't mentioned, but they were talking about one of them had passed out and they were not waking up. I'm like, let's go feel for a pulse or something. Did we see blood? I mean, did we see anything else that indicated more than just an unconscious person? I don't know. I have so many questions about this. Okay, let me continue on. When the arriving officers finally got there, they found the bodies of Maddie, Kaylee, Zana, and Ethan, deceased, stabbed to death. So if somebody's stabbed to death, do we not see a whole freaking crime scene? I'm just saying, this is more than just an unconscious person situation. This is more than just that. They were found on the second and third floor of the house where they had been in bed. The surviving two roommates were home during this whole time, obviously. They were both unharmed, and police are saying that they were not necessarily witnesses to the incident because they obviously didn't see the stabbing, and they appear to have slept through the whole thing. I'm like, nobody heard anything? Authorities also stated that the victims were likely sleeping when they were killed, as all four were found in bed and were stabbed multiple times. Some had defensive wounds, and there was no sign of sexual assault. Thank God. I just can't even imagine to think what their last thoughts. I don't know. This is just so sad. And police had believed that whoever did this used an etched weapon, such as a knife, but they didn't find any weapons, they didn't find a knife, they didn't find anything. So when all of this happening during the time of this crime, there's a vehicle that's seen on cameras near the home between 3:29 a.m. and 4:20. So it's right in the time frame.
Moscow, Idaho discovered surveillance video that showed a white sedan driving by on the night the 4 University of Idaho students were murdered. The timestamp says 3:45 a.m., right in the time frame in which police say the killings took place.
It was confirmed to be a white Hyundai Elantra, and the authorities were just thinking like, hey, like there's this vehicle that's been around this area when this happened. So they were thinking this person has information that's critical. And I'm just like, you mean to tell me you just see this random guy in this street that they lived on? It wasn't a lot of like traffic. You don't see a lot of cars. So you see this same specific car, driving around this time that these 4 kids were killed. Yeah, of course they know something about it. Like, I would think so. On November 29th, a Washington State University officer had seen a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra, and he kind of did his homework, and the car came back registered to Brian Kohberger. So that car was in an apartment complex parking lot when the officer saw it. And authorities at that point were able to focus on this specific person because his driver's license picture and his information on his license matched what that surviving roommate had told authorities about the person that she had seen inside. Like, he just fit into the description of the man she had seen. On November 30th, police released a list of people who they believed were not involved in the crime. That list included the 2 surviving roommates. I don't know how they ruled them off so fast. A man seen like right behind them when the 2 girls were picking up their food from the food truck. And I'll show you guys a video here so you guys can kind of get a closer look. When you look back at that video, you're like, oh, maybe he did look a little suspicious, but I mean, at the time, he probably didn't. They also ruled off the private driver, the DoorDash driver, and the former boyfriend, and everybody else that was at the house when 911 was called. So it was a lot of people in there. Not a lot, but it was people in there. On December 7th, authorities announced that they were looking to speak with the person driving the white Hyundai Elantra that was in the immediate area of the victim's house on November 13th. In a recording, it shows the car speeding away from the home. I'm like, you cannot look any more suspicious. Like, you've already been seen circling this house and now you're seen just speeding away. Like, okay. Like, this is so hard to like narrow this down because there's approximately a list of 22,000 registered white Hyundai Elantras that fit into that criteria. So how are we gonna narrow this down? So that same car that they had seen on surveillance, they were able to track that car back to Pullman, Washington that same night or early morning. Even though it seems like such a bigger, distance because it's a whole different state, Washington was only 15 minutes away from where this all happened. Then Kylie's mom had also shared, quote unquote, this person went in very methodical. I think he really thought it out, and I think he was quick. I think it was quiet, and he got in and he got out. Like, that was his whole mission. Like, I'm just here to do this, I'm out. Also, just to mention, because this is very important, there was 2 key traffic stops that happened. On December 15th, Brian Kohberger, so the same guy that has a white Hyundai Elantra, was driving with his father. They were driving from Washington to spend the holidays with family in Pennsylvania. This trip had already been pre-planned. He was a student, so this was kind of like his winter break, so he was going back home, basically. The first time that he got pulled over, it was for speeding. Then only 9 minutes later, he got pulled over again for tailgating another car. How do you get pulled over 2 times within 9 minutes? How? In this clip, captured by the officer's body cam, you can see Brian and his father getting pulled over and having a conversation with the officer. And I wish the audio was a little bit better because I'm like, I want to hear more clearly, but the traffic is not allowing me to do that.
Hello. How you doing? How y'all doing today? Good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on that van, man. You was right up on the back end of that van, pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where are you headed?
We're going to actually, well, we're coming from WSU, and we're standing early.
What's WSU?
Yeah, I go to the university basically, and we're listening to this incident that's occurring up there. There's a shooting incident. That is SWAT team area.
So I'm having a hard time hearing you because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University?
Yeah.
And you're going where? Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're slightly punched because we're driving for hours.
Hours, days.
Hours to drive. Well, almost a day.
Okay. And what did you say about some SWAT team thing? Or
Yeah,
something?
there was a mass shooting and everything. We don't know if it was a mass
Where?
shooting. This was essentially what ended up happening was
Interesting.
well, it's horrifying because he's going to university, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So y'all work at the university there?
I actually do work there.
Oh,
PhD in criminal.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that incident. Just yesterday, or?
No, this happened this morning. About an hour and a half ago, we're still wrapping it up for investigating. I'm not sure there's two shootings because they did shoot somebody,
I see.
and then we don't know about that actually. They were there, they were shooting out of the window or something.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. So do me a favor and don't follow too close, okay? All right. Thank you. Appreciate you.
And this happened in a whole different state, so it was probably not available to them at that time. Fast forward to December 27th, authorities said DNA from the suspect was recovered on a knife sheath left near Maddie's body. He probably dropped it as he was in there, probably didn't see it, left it behind. Thank God he did that because now there's DNA. On December 30th, Brian Kohberger was arrested in Pennsylvania in the early morning around 1:30 for the killings of these young kids. And they found him at his parents' home. He was wearing latex gloves, separating his trash. He was putting them in two little baggies when police found him. When he was getting arrested, he asked if anybody else had been arrested, and he had a quiet blank stare. I'm still at, what was he doing up at 1:30, separating his garbage? Like, that's not normal to do at 1:30 a.m. The medical warrants confirm that authorities seized 4 medical style gloves, as well as a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, and a pair of size 13 Nike sneakers, and along with other things. They also did a DNA sample. They did a swab around his cheeks during his arrest, and guess what? It was almost a perfect match. I mean, are we shocked? Because I'm not. It was almost a perfect match to that knife sheath that was left behind at the crime scene. His car was parked outside. They seized his car, and in there they find more gloves, swabs, boots, a shovel, and a pair of goggles. I don't really know if it's connected to this case, but it's something to mention. And sadly, this arrest is not going to bring back these 4 beautiful humans that were tragically taken too soon, but I definitely think that is a step in the right direction and hopefully bring some closure to the 4 families and bring some justice for these 4 victims. So what do we know about Brian? A little backstory. Brian Kohberger is 28. He earned an associate's degree in psychology. He received a BA in 2020 and an MA in 2022 in criminal justice from DeSales University in Pennsylvania. At the time of his arrest, he was a PhD criminology student. He was also teaching at that same university that he attended, where he later got fired for inappropriate stuff, and he was teaching in the criminology department as a part of his graduate program. And he had just gotten terminated December 19th, so it had not been long. In the fall of 2022, he applied for an internship at the Pullman Police Department, where he didn't get the job. He also made this Reddit post that read, quote unquote, "My name is Brian and I am inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. In the event that your most recent offense was not one that led to a conviction, you may still participate." So he was basically just trying to figure out, hey, if you didn't get convicted when you committed these crimes, he was trying to understand their mind. Then he proceeded with, the study should take about 15 to 25 minutes to fully complete. And also, I feel like it's very important to include these clips of different people that tell what kind of person Brian is or was, because they came in contact or knew him somehow.
Jack Bayless met Brian Kohberger in 8th grade.
I want to say he wanted to be a cop since he was younger.
What kind of teenager was he?
He was pretty normal. He was definitely heavier set, and that caused issues in school. He's always been kind of fascinated with kind of how the brain works, and how people think and why they do what they do.
And so my senior year, I ended up in a biology class, which is where I met and interacted with Brian Kohberger.
What were your first impressions of the guy?
Brian seemed normal enough.
But that opinion did not last for Bernard James, a DeSales film student in 2018 when he attended a class with Kohberger.
One of the big parts of that biology class that we were in, we had a group project as a part of our final grade.
With 4 DeSales classmates on the project, Kohberger was chosen as team leader. Not surprising for the student DeSales professor Michelle Bolger called brilliant and one of the best students ever, according to an article in the Daily Mail. Dr. Bolger declined to comment to King 5. But to some classmates at the Christian University, Kohberger seemed more like a know-it-all.
The way that he came across in his speech, kind of person who has to use big words, the one always raising his hand in class.
And what happened then towards the end of this whole thing?
We're approaching the due date, and I was feeling like I was left out to dry.
Bernard James says Kohberger completed the class project without including him, resulting in a failed class in Bernard's final year at DeSales. He confronted Kohberger in the university library.
I remember him being very straight-faced, very almost emotionless with this. He kind of a small smile on his face. Like there's more to him than it seems. Very intense stare. I remember that. I'll never forget that. Looking right into my soul almost, as we were having this back and forth. Manipulative, cold.
Was he witnessing an odd personality trait or something more? After Kohberger's arrest, Bernard can't be sure.
I mean, it's not every day you expect to come into contact with someone who's accused of something like that, but I see it in some ways. I see the calculated side of him.
We're talking about 4 vicious stabbings here.
Yeah.
Could your friend have done this?
I hope he didn't do it. I'm a big believer in innocent until proven guilty. So I hope someone I know didn't do that.
So now let's go to the day of the crime. What was Brian doing in the early hours of November 13, 2022? Where was he exactly? Do we know? His white vehicle was spotted multiple times on camera near the victim's home between 3:39 and 4:20 before appearing once again near the Washington State campus around 5:25. So probably drove to the victim's home, then drove back to the campus. Phone records also indicate that his phone was near the victim's home between 9:12 and 9:21 that same morning. So he went back to campus, then came back. And I'm trying to see if he realized that he had dropped that little thing. I don't know. He probably realized, oh shoot, I dropped it. Let me go back. His phone had also pinged near the home 12 times before the killings. So he had already been around the house. And his phone was either turned off or set on airplane mode between the hours of 2:47 and 4:48 a.m. when this happened. Okay. So you mean to tell me it just conveniently turned off around the time that the 4 victims were stabbed? I don't know. Brian Kohberger was arrested for 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary because obviously he burglarized their home. He agreed to be extradited to Idaho during his court appearance in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. Remember guys, when he got arrested in Pennsylvania. Now they have to take him back to Idaho where this crime happened. And you can see him in this video arriving.
Combing through evidence after the arrest of Brian Christopher Kohberger, accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students. Kohberger was taken into custody Friday in Pennsylvania. His family continues to stand by him, saying he is presumed innocent. Kohberger's next court appearance is set for this Tuesday in Pennsylvania. He is expected to waive extradition back to Idaho.
On January 4th, he was extradited from Pennsylvania to Idaho, and on January 5th, he has his first appearance.
You have the right to be represented by a lawyer. If you cannot afford one could be appointed to represent you based upon your financial need. You also have the right to appeal any conviction in your case. Do you understand these rights?
Yes.
I am now going to go over the criminal complaint with you. Count 1 of the criminal complaint charges you with the felony offense of burglary. It alleges that the defendant, Brian C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th of 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did unlawfully enter a residence located at 1122 King Road, Moscow, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder, in violation of Idaho Code 18-1401 and 1403. The maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is not less than 1 year in prison, no more than 10 years in prison, and or a $50,000 fine or both. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 2 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Brian C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died, in violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. The maximum penalty for this offense, if you were to plead guilty or be found guilty, is death or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 3 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Brian C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th of 2022 in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonsalves, a human being, by stabbing Kaylee Gonsalves, from which she died, in violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, 4004. Again, the maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is death and or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 4 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Brian C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th of 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing Xana Kernodle, from which she died, in violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. Again, the maximum penalty for that offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is up to death and or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 5 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Brian C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th of 2022 in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing Ethan Chapin, from which he died, in violation of Idaho Codes 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. And again, the maximum penalty for this offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is up to death and imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
The charges were read for each individual victim, and the judge also stated that they had been stabbed and murdered with premeditation, with malice and forethought. During the hearing, the judge asked Brian if he wanted to represent himself or he wanted a court-appointed attorney, and he replied with, quote unquote, "I have court-appointed counsel," aka he had a public defender. And honestly, he might have had enough knowledge to represent himself since, given his background. I don't know. On May 17th, a grand jury indicted Brian on murder and burglary charges, and if found guilty, he could face a death penalty, which is almost like when somebody takes 4 lives. I mean, that's literally like the least, I don't know. On May 22nd, not guilty pleas were entered on Brian's behalf because he decided to remain silent, and when the judge asked him for his plea, he was just quiet. So they just basically made a decision for him because he didn't speak. On June 23rd, a judge denied 2 motions to either remove the gag order or be exempt from it. Basically, a gag order sets restrictions on what information can be released to the public and what certain people involved in the case can say. Like, obviously there's like certain rules, and they basically did this because since this was a high profile case, and they didn't want to jeopardize his right to a fair trial. And a great example of this is the O.J. Simpson trial. And after this, at some point, you know, a whole different day, Bryan Kohberger presents his alibi for the night of the murders, and attorneys say that the accused killer, Bryan Kohberger, quote unquote, has long had a habit of going for long drives alone, and that he did so on the night of and morning after the murders. I think they forgot to add to the alibi that, you know, he conveniently went out during the times that these 4 kids were killed. It's just, his alibi is adding up with the timeline of the murder, okay? I don't know. Like, they could have came up with a better alibi. I don't know. He needs a new attorney. On August 23rd, 2023, a twist in the whole case is revealed. Bryan Kohberger waived his right to a speedy trial in a move which postponed the proceedings indefinitely. And his attorney told the court that he chose to waive because they didn't expect to be ready for the planned trial that was expected to start in October. They were basically not ready. And I mean, at this point, there was other court appearances that he was going to, and I'm like, you're going to court for everything but the damn trial. Can we speed it up a little bit? And the state is asking for a 6-week trial to happen in the summer of 2024, which hopefully, I mean, that's still like 6-7 months away. I don't know. We'll see when they set a date. And also, the house where the killings occurred was donated to the University of Idaho. It was just recently demolished on December 28th of 2023. So this literally just happened. In my own professional opinion, I feel like they should have tore this house down after the trial, because what if there was valuable evidence like inside the house? Like, why rush? Now this potential evidence is gone. Like, you can't go back to the scene because the scene is gone. But again, I'm not a professional in this field, so what do I know? Now, I would like to see some people take the stand when this trial happens, or at least be questioned intensively. This might have happened. They're probably just not releasing information to the public. I don't know, and you guys might disagree with me, but what do you guys think? For one, the surviving roommates, especially the one that heard the voices, the one that seen the male figure, like, I would like to see her take the stand just to kind of understand her a little bit, to see what she was coming from. I'm sure she has a lot of survivor's guilt. Something just doesn't sit well with me, guys. I can't even imagine to think how they even feel, because I don't know. But I just think it's important. Also, I would like to know if the DoorDash driver was questioned, because the DoorDash driver dropped food off around this time frame. Also, could Bryan have done this by himself? Is there somebody else? And I'm only asking this because he did ask authorities if anybody else had been arrested when he was getting arrested. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? All in all, I really hope this man gets a trial date immediately, ASAP, so the families can hopefully get some closure. But I'll keep you guys updated on this, and I guess we'll see how this whole case unfolds. This is all for this episode. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys next time.